Are you having trouble hiring? Are you holding on to staff you know you shouldn't hold on to because you're not sure if you can find someone better? If these are coming up as issues, I'm going to cover the 3 big barriers in hiring. There's 3 big mistakes and barriers that are going to stop you from finding the right people. Okay, so the thing you have to realize is when you're hiring, what are you doing? You're taking a task that you probably did yourself or you know better than anyone else and you want someone else to do it. So when you're hiring, you're actually taking some of your responsibility and giving it to someone else. Now, there's 3 major things that come up that we're going to cover in this video that when these are there, I find hiring does not work. Regardless of the ads, the money spent, who you talk to, the headhunters, these 3 things will kill you when it comes to having personnel. And personnel can make or break your business. Okay, so point number 1. Point number 1 is very vital, and that is holding on to staff who don't want to be there. That is such an important point. You don't feel you can replace them. You don't know what else is out there, so you say, well, at least they're doing this. Well, the thing you have to realize is when you get new people in, they run into that problem too, and they think, I don't want to work here. That person's negative energy spreads throughout the business, and good people don't want to work there either. So it's bringing everyone down by holding on to someone that should not be there. Now, what should you do? So we all know that. Many times you've probably said, yeah, well, I know I probably shouldn't have held on to this person so long, but you're waiting for that moment, right? I'm going to tell you a couple things to do right now that you can apply if you have one of those people. If you have someone in your office that you know is either not performing up to the right level, or you can just tell they show up and they dread work, or maybe your friends on Facebook and they're always posting, yeah, it's Thursday, one more day, and I can't wait to get out of here. If you have those people, you do not have a team. You don't have people who are working with you. You know they're working against you. No one does nothing. They're either with you or they're not with you. And if they're not with you, realize they are pulling things down. They do talk bad. They do talk to other employees, and they suck the life out of you. The first thing that I do with those people is I meet with them and I say, okay, I'd like to go over a couple things with you. How do you like working here? I asked them that. How do you like working here? I was in an office a couple years ago, and there was this person who was just negative, so negative and didn't like being there and was always, and I said, how do you like working here? And she looked at me and she said, every day, I hope that I have a car accident so I don't have to go to work. And I looked at her and said, I'm going to save your life. I'm going to find something that you like doing. And then we had this whole meeting with all the staff there. And I said, this person is, we're actually going to promote this person. And everyone's eyes got big and looked around. We're going to promote this person. We're going to promote them to go do whatever they want to do. And we wish them the best, and everyone stood up and clapped. They knew she didn't want to be there. So one of the first things, if they don't want to be there, ask them, how do you like working here? You might find they don't like working there, and you can say, well, yeah, I kind of picked that up. Well, I really like you, but I want you to be happy. And right then and there, that could solve your problem. They're on their way. Fine. Okay, number 2 is they might say, oh, I love it here. It's great here. Why? Because they get to play on Facebook all day. They get paid for not working. They get all the benefits. They get to eat everyone's sandwich in the fridge. Why do they like being there? Well, who knows? But they might say, oh, this is great. You say, okay, well, then at that point, if they think things are going great and you know that they're not, what you're going to know is that you don't have a standard for them to which they are comparing themselves. You need to put them on either a statistic or some production goal or some amount of a to-do. Now that does 2 things. One, if they're not working and you all of a sudden get them working, they don't want to be there and they leave on their own, fine, great. Or 2, it turns that employee into a possible good employee. How does it do that? Now they're working. Now their morale goes up. Now they have something to do, right? Don't be afraid to get those people to work. You are paying them to produce something valuable. Your clients wouldn't pay you. Your patients wouldn't pay you if you didn't do something valuable. Why are you paying other people to not do something valuable? So that is one aspect when you deal with that type of person. The other thing to do, and this is why it's important. Before I even get into this step, I'm going to tell you what I find more times than not is staff know that you're not doing something. Staff know that you're not confronting something. They're aware of it. They know you're not doing it. And right or wrong, they're not thinking highly of you because you're not doing it. And they do talk to each other. Well, yeah. And then they start getting away with it. I mean, just think, if that person gets away with it, then the good staff go, well, why bother? Because this person gets away with it, I'm going to do what I want to do. So it's setting that example. It's rewarding a down statistic. It's rewarding non-production, right? So whenever that occurs, the people who are producing, right, that are doing the right thing, notice that and go, well, they're getting just as much as I am. I'm the one getting in trouble for not meeting my deadlines. They're not getting in trouble. And they start veering, they start moving towards the negative direction. So that's why it is important to have that conversation, give them that goal. And remember, ask them how it's going. First thing, how do you like working here? Yeah, do you like what you do? Well, and you could, at that point, they might find their exit. If they don't, give them some goal, right? Here's what I want you to hit. Now, this next step is for the brave. If you're up for it, great. I highly recommend it. Let them go. Most people won't do it, but you got to let them go. You got to say, this is the standard. Give them a warning. Sure, do whatever you want to do, but say, this is the standard, and I need you to be producing this by Friday. It's Wednesday. So by Friday, I need you to be doing, what I paid you to do, basically. Oh, I can't do that. Okay, well, that's what I need, and so we'll meet again on Friday. Fine, let them go. You're losing so much money by having that non-producer there already. Okay, that's point number one. Point number two is also extremely crucial. And this one is, yes, you have this person who's there, who is not producing, and that's point number one, but then you also have people who aren't producing, so you start hiring others. You start hiring others to do that person's job. And you wonder why the payroll's so high. You wonder why there's not profit. Well, I'm going to tell you right now, it's because you're paying two people to do one job. You're paying two people to do one job. And that's always vital to know. That's always vital whenever you have someone who's not working and you bring someone in. And get this idea right here. If you have confusion, which that's what happens when an area is not producing. When you have confusion, and you bring more people into that confusion, do you think they're going to solve it? Do you think the new person's going to come in and say, well, I'm brand new, I'm going to solve all the problems here? No, they're going to come in and say, well, monkey see, monkey do. They're doing this, I'm going to do that too. And who are they hanging around? The people who are not working. Who are they being trained by? The people who are not working. So anytime that you have an area that's not producing, never add more people to it. And I hear that all the time. We just need more people. Well, it's not producing. Why would you need more people? There's already so much confusion in that area, but adding more people is just going to build the confusion and decrease the profitability. You have someone in there who's not working. Now, an area that is at its max and everyone's producing, put people in that area because they come in there, it tells you that that area is functioning. Let's take your hygiene area. If it's not working, or in an accounting firm, you have your bookkeepers, or in a sales, a firm that's doing sales, that the sales quotas not being met or whatever it is, you can just look and say, are they at a viable level? Are they at a level that is actually paying for themselves? And if they're not, by adding more people, more confusion. So what do you do on that? Kind of similar to step number one, but it's a different approach. But it's a similar symptom. You have people who are not working. You have people who are unwilling. And at that point, before you go and you bring more people in, you make sure that area is functioning, because when you bring new people in, you're now spending more money and they're getting trained. I do the same thing, is I look at people who aren't working and I ask them how they like working there. I ask them, what do they think of the job that they do? I find those points out, okay? And then two, I give them a quota. Probably one of the biggest errors I find with a lot of business owners is there's just not a quota, right, for the existing staff you have. But number one, right, is you have negative staff. That's always going to interfere with hiring. People don't want to come in, right? So that's a huge part. Number two, as I said, you have an area that's not producing that you want to add people to. They are different, right? Negative people, that could be a negative person in some other area. Negative receptionist you want to hire for the bookkeeping area or whatever it is. But still, if you have negative people, they're going to draw people away. But on that point number two, I want to stress, in an area that's not producing, you're rewarding it. You're rewarding it by giving it more people. And now it's a bigger camouflage. Now it looks like it's, well, I don't know who it is, when before it was actually quite clear who wasn't producing. So never put more people in a non-productive area. And you look at hiring, why is it so hard to find good people, right? Those negative people actually draw them away. And I've had it where someone walked in for an interview and they walked out and they said, oh, she no-showed. And the receptionist who she was replacing, the new applicant was replacing the receptionist. The new receptionist goes, no, she didn't show up. Well, we found out later through email, yeah, I showed up and the receptionist was really rude and I can't work around that environment. So of course we called her right away and said, well, that's who you're replacing. Thank you so much for communicating with us and being honest. And we got the person in and they replaced him and they were a great person, but they were drawn away because they went, I don't want to work in this negative environment. I'm not a negative person who wants to work around this, right? So you see why that's very vital. Now the third point, and the third thing to realize when it comes to hiring and the mistakes that I see on hiring is probably should have been point number one because it happens so much, but it's just desperate. You're so desperate, desperation hiring. You just jump right into it and okay, take that person or yeah, what a great interview. And you're not willing to hold off. And when you do that, there's a couple things that happen. It doesn't necessarily mean you're pulling in a negative person, but the reason that you do that is usually twofold. One, you don't really know what you want. I highly, highly recommend write this down. This is one of the most important points in hiring, and the reason it's not covered more blows my mind. If you haven't written down exactly what you want, then there's a good chance you won't get it. So you have to write down what it is you want, the type of person, what it is they do. Not just a simple, 4-point job description or even half a page but really what type of person. And you can go back to the people who didn't work out and say, yeah, make sure that they don't have that problem or they're not hooked on this or they don't have that. Go back and really in detail. And that way, when they come in, you know what you're looking for. Because the first thing I find in desperate hiring was, they came in and they seemed like they were a great fit. Well, what were you comparing to? What, the 4 points you remembered from the job description, right? So when you get desperate and realize a bad employee, having no one there, what do you have? No one. At least you know there's no one. But when you have someone there who's the wrong employee, what do you have? Well, you have treason. Why? Because they're supposed to be doing something and they're not doing it. You have someone who you think you can give something to, but they don't actually produce. So at that point, that's where you really have problems. Because if you have no one, you at least know that you have to do it. But if you give it to someone, you think they do it, it's not really done. Now you're in twice, because now you're promising things to get done and you're paying for that person. You're telling people, oh, that'll be done. And when you have to redo it, you're not predicting that. That's why you're there on weekends. That's why you're there at night. At least by yourself, you know and can honestly estimate how much work you're going to get done. Those are the 3 biggest barriers that I see in hiring. Now we're going to go over the key hiring steps. How do you actually overcome those? But those 3 steps, number 3, I do want to say, number 3, just don't do until you know you have a process in place. Most people don't have a hiring process. They go by hunch. I find that works 1% of the time. Going by your hunch because you interview them and they were nice, or you really liked them, or you needed someone and that's what you got. All right, let me know in the comments below what you run into. What are the barriers you run into? What type of personnel come in? Are you not getting enough applicants? Are you not getting enough qualified applicants? I can help you solve that. All right, thank you.